fucking name!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link, together with a, thanks button if you're watching after the fact, in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this, in turn, increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Chocolate Saying, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning, everybody.
Yo, yo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Happy birthday to my lovely wife, Sarita.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Shout out
birthday.
to Sarita.
Time to get a dress.
Well, welcome to Talk Radio, where we have phone-ins for birthdays from the panel members, it seems. No, happy birthday to your wife.
Thank
Hello,
you.
Arwin.
Hello. Hi,
Hello,
guys.
good to have you. Should we crack on? Should we do a bit of housekeeping? Anything pre-housekeeping, housekeeping?
Yeah, is that
I mean-
rumpus on the screen right there?
Our house is pretty clean. I don't know. So,
This house here is exceptionally clean. There is no doubt about it. This house being
the
this
flat-
show.
The Flat Earth house has no mortgage. We're going to keep it.
Right, let's do a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
You don't need to.
wait, does from mean the same thing as to?
No.
Oh, okay. Then no.
Maybe in the second dimension you can.
The second dimension.
Yeah.
So we definitely have 3 dimensions, generally speaking, when we're measuring stuff. You know, we're using a Euclidean system. Length, breadth, and depth. What do you mean? On a piece of paper? Is that what you mean?
Mathematically, yes.
Mathematically, in Muppet Vision in 2 dimensions, when you're looking at a circle and claiming that the circle, which would actually be a protractor, is actually the surface of the sphere that would bifurcate the centre of that protractor in the celestial sphere model. That 2-dimensional.
There you go. Problem solved.
It's nice that I have to summarise this stuff in such consistency when my panel are so vague. Thank you, Arwin, for being so concise yourself. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I'm sorry. I asked the question, is from the same thing as to, because you actually said from twice. You want to tell people why you did that?
Looking at you, Arwin.
No, I'm
Sorry.
talking to you, Nathan.
Oh, what did I say?
When you asked, is there any evidence that you can get an elevation angle from a curved baseline? And you said from twice. You kind of, put the stamp on it. Maybe that was glanced over by a lot of people. Do you want to tell people why you said that?
Because you're measuring it by utilising a baseline that you stood upon, as opposed to assuming that the ground beneath you is falling away and the straight line you're measuring is to a tangent point, and the straight line you measure that meets a curved earth that you're not standing on is the straight line that you can utilise. That would be to a tangent point. A straight line to a tangent point, you assume, isn't the ground you're standing on and acquiring a baseline from. So from and to are very different things in this context. I'm glad you asked for clarity.
No doubt.
But what about when they say you don't need to do that. That's what I've been hearing.
Right.
They don't need to do
Well,
that.
they're not at sea, so, they don't need to figure out where the hell they are when they're in the middle of the ocean and potentially could die if they didn't do it and acquire an elevation angle from a flat baseline. I mean, they don't need to do that in daily life. But if you're out at sea and you're lost and you might lose your life if you don't figure out where the hell you are, you're going to need a flat baseline. Any evidence the distance to the sun?
Nope.
You're going to need to have lots of assumptions.
And yet we're doing basic trig on these measurements when we acquire an elevation angle, right? It's even in the title, isn't it? Elevation? Isn't that how high it is?
Well, that's what they say. They say that we should know the distance of the sun when you do celestial navigation.
No, I wasn't stereotyping our opponent. I was asking my own side a question. Did you missed the nuance of my question there, Neil? It's called an elevation angle, isn't it, Neil?
Yes.
Going to
What
need a
does-
flat plane for that.
Hold on. You guys are missing what I'm doing, clearly. I like it. What does elevation mean? Anybody at all?
It's height, right?
It does.
Yeah, height from horizontal.
Not exactly.
Height above mean sea level.
Not exactly either.
What the hell does it mean?
It means its angle measured above the horizontal or sea level as Brian described it. The elevation angle is the degrees that you measure it through the protractor, or, in this case, sextant. How many degrees above the horizon is an elevation angle? But the word elevation means how high it is, doesn't it?
Well, it's specifically though, Nathan, above mean sea level.
No.
Elevation.
You see, Adam's got there. Go on, Adam.
There's two ways of describing the angle when you using a sextant. It's based on your orientation of what you're doing. So the elevation angle refers to the orientation of the measurement. So from 0 up to 90 would be an elevation angle. Whereas if you're on a plane, then the depression angle would be described like that. So you'd say it's either an elevation or a depression angle, depending on the viewer's point of view of what he's measuring. He was measuring down. So it's a confirmation of the orientation of the measurement, that it goes from sea level, as Brian said, up to the sky, as opposed to a depression angle. Is that
Perfect. Perfect.
It's the word elevation, and specifically, you asked about elevation, Nathan. Elevation
yes.
is height above mean sea level. That's what it is.
No, I agree. But I'm leading us to an understanding as a flat Earth audience. Let's be honest, there's no globers here. So we're just advancing our own understandings of how their arguments are played out in real time when they're here arguing, or leaving them in comments, or whatever means they're using to disseminate this idea that we suddenly have to justify the height and are asked for it. Now, there's two aspects to that in rebuttal. The first is that your height you do ascribe with actual values to physical distances is thrown out the window the moment you do celestial navigation. If we beg the question of an angle that you can't acquire being acquired and then used off a sphere that's then going to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, so it matches up with the celestial sphere model. If we give you all of that, so they're going to throw out their distances. They're going to become infinite. Brian, just back me up, just so the audience doesn't think I'm making it up.
What do you want me to say?
Yeah, their distances to the stars become infinite.
Oh yeah, well that's because they have to be for the heliocentric model. They use the two-way spatial light, so
So in the first
They have to be.
instance, in rebuttal, well, what your distance is, bearing in mind you do claim distance, you don't have. Now, when it comes to us, specifically us on here now, sorry, Discord, can't talk for all of you, on G+, we understand that there is no requirement for the elevation when acquiring an angle above 0 up to 90 degrees. That has nothing to do with, I'll rephrase the term, height. We all appreciate that, don't we? Please say yes.
Yeah. I get what you're saying now.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So just the second part of the rebuttal is to say that we don't require it. And this is an exercise in understanding why elevation isn't intrinsically a requirement that we, even though it's not our claim, it's just how celestial navigation's done, we need the height when we're charged with it. Number one, it isn't required in celestial navigation. Not a flat earth claim, just a process that is done to this day. And secondly, you, with your claims that we don't make to parallel, we don't claim the height here specifically. If you're one of those guys out there saying it's an XY distance, that's not my problem. Here you'll learn different. But yeah, the second is we don't claim a height and we don't need to if we were performing this method that proves a flat earth. That would be celestial navigation.
There is no height, but I'm going to grasp the point you're trying to clarify here. When we say take an elevation angle, what we often think is what height is it elevated to? This is not what's happening. The elevation height is the same, or there's an assumption within celestial navigation that the height is maintained the same. So when we're referring to an elevation angle, we're not actually interested in the height. We're interested in just measuring the angle and the co-angle so that we get positions in time from that of the celestials that we're measuring. So there is no distance per se in any of the trigonometric functions that are needed for us to obtain. We obtain distances in terms of straight line distances between GPs and U from the celestial navigation, from the co-angle. So to assume that there's any height in there, it's actually the complete opposite. You assume the height is arbitrary because the solution to the trigonometry is resolved by a celestial navigation with the co-angle. There's no need for a side length.
I love it when we're of like minds. Adam's done my job for me. Perfect, Adam, absolutely perfect. But the bit I wanted to stress in that was the flat roof assumption. And that's why presumably Brian's about to pipe up. Maybe I'm wrong. Can I, just before you do though, Brian, keep hold of that thought. Shout out with my extra long chat that I haven't going to miss a damn thing. Yay. Mr. Gadget says housekeeping in quotes, but no one can join the voice chat. You can. So if the voice chat's full, join the live stream queue and I'll move you in. But by the looks of things, it's not actually full. And I can do this all while I'm talking to you without moving any tabs. Yay. I'm so excited for my new screen. Thank you very much for the super chat, Mr. Gadget. It says housekeeping, but no one can join the voice chat. Now I've reread it, I think what you mean is no one's joining the voice chat from the ball side. I'm just going to read between the lines because you're giving me money to say it. So I'm going to assume it's positive. Shout out to Godzilla. If this super chat goes unnoticed, then it's flat. But if it's red, I'll be shocked. But it's still flat. Thanks for the super chat. I've got a really long chat feed now, Godzilla, so I shouldn't hope to miss any.
What's better is you can actually read it.
I can actually read it slightly better than it is slightly bigger text. I'm sure of it now. I'm reading it off because you can hear me stammering and stuttering a lot less. Thank you very much, both of you, for the super chats. That would be Godzilla37 and Mr. Gadget. Really appreciate the support and sincerity. Brian, have you managed to keep hold of that thought, hopefully, in regards to flat roofs?
Well, yeah, I actually was going to talk about the elevation. Well, what I was going to say is that the elevation angle is only ever described, well, obviously the angle part says it, but it's only ever described in degrees and derivations of degrees. It's never ever described, an elevation angle is never described in feet and inches or miles. The elevation angle is used as horizontal distance measurement along the surface of Earth. The angle itself is only ever described in degrees. There was no miles, feet, inches height given to that angle. There's a big disconnect on our opposing side as to what an elevation angle is as opposed to an angular size measurement. An angular size measurement, you use the internals of the angle, and you can make an angular size measurement of a table or of a house, and it would be the same angle. They could both be 40 degrees. It just depends on your distance from the object, and whether you know its actual height before you start and different things. If you know its actual distance or its actual height, blah, blah, blah. But an elevation angle is only ever described in degrees and derivations of degrees. And from that, you then obviously have your secondary zenith angle, which then is what you're talking about, Nathan, the roof, which becomes the roof of your elevation angle. And that roof length will be measured in minutes of degree, and it will then be transferred from minutes of degree straight down, 1 for 1 as nautical miles along the surface of Earth. So there's only a horizontal nautical mile distance measurement in the end. There is no feet and inches vertical measurement at all at any time when you're doing celestial navigation. There is no angular size measurements taking place of the celestial bodies. Maybe of lighthouses and different things, but not of the celestial bodies. Finished.
Perfect. I'm trying to send an image via Skype, but it just doesn't seem to want to upload of my guy sat at the middle of a protractor with the flat roof and the sun moving over the top with various angle measurements to it. But I can't put it up. So there we go. Wow, there is 157 people watching. I've just noticed we're only 7 minutes... slightly lost for words. Only 17 minutes in, over 150 people watching. Wow, that's fantastic. I have no idea why. Brilliant. Thank you for tuning in. Maybe people in the live stream chat have shared the show. Very warm welcome to all of you if you've just joined us. Please share the show if you haven't shared it already. You've probably only joined because somebody shared. Somebody bigger shared.
Can I interject a thought here?
Shout out to all the live people watching. Welcome to Flat Earth. Snacks in the back.
I think it's the mafia genre.
Let's ask a couple more housekeeping questions. Any evidence of a physical, geometric, sphere-edge horizon that's formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
We lost that technology, and it's a painful process to bring that back to.
We did actually do
It only exists in the math. Thanks, Rampus.
I was going to link it to the discussion in the pre-show. So there was, I just don't often highlight it, and still therefore is, a disconnect with people who associate what you see at ground level in the form of the horizon being Earth curve and its obstruction of things into the distance with its physical elements, aka it's like a hill, getting in the way of stuff beyond the hill. That's what Earth curve's asserted to be. And you qualify it in Muppet vision. That's seeing the side of your own head and the target on the same page, and the target not changing in angular size, that's perspective, remaining the same feet and inches value at any distance. Well, when you've got those aspects combined, people see the horizon as that occultation and nothing more. But then, when you stick them in a different point of view, i.e. up at altitude, they will then have a minor alteration to their reification of the horizon and think it's literally how the ball is represented. That would be to say that the horizon you see, being the edge of the sphere, is going to curve in your field of view from left to right. And that's a very different type of perception in terms of how they think the Earth curve is. And it always, Mr. Sensible was the most recent to do this in one of my comments. So he came along and started babbling on about his mage that he sent up, this balloon, and talking about Earth curve. And you're like, hello, that's the exact same physical geometric sphere edge horizon that we debunked in 2020 with the Black Swan. It doesn't suddenly become a physical limitation to your view that bends at altitude. It's just exactly the same horizon. We debunked it as a physical limitation to your view. It's not Earth curve, regardless of if you go up in a hot air balloon or space.
They
was
can't
where I was
handle the
linking.
black swan.
I think the disconnect with that is that then, well, when you tell a regular person like boats are going over the horizon, that's something they have to envision, right? They're not actually seeing that. You don't ever actually see that, but that's what they have to have in their mind to make the ball make sense. But once you take it out of that and you put it into some CGI crap where now you're seeing curve, well, now it's no longer imagination. You just say, hey, look, there it is. And that's it. It's that simple. So they've taken it away from the imagination, and they're just giving you some CGI that you could just point to and say, look, there it is. There's the curve.
Technically a donation, but Moop upgraded his membership to Unicorn. Well, thank you very much. There is absolutely no incentive to do so, but it gives me money. So I really appreciate your support, Moop. Thank you very much indeed for becoming a unicorn.
Well, how could he be a unicorn if they don't exist?
Chocolate, they say that's evidence of curvature. They never say curvature, but they say evidence of curvature, or both falling over the horizon.
Isn't that funny that they say that when you ask them where it is and they can't show it, but then when they can show it, when they're showing some CGI crap, all of a sudden it becomes the curvature and not the evidence of curvature that we can only get when they say that all the time, right? Because they always say, oh, we never see the curvature. We can only see the evidence of it. Well, then what happens when you see it? No longer just the evidence. Now you see it. They can't even keep their story straight. It's ridiculous.
Meanwhile, we only have one horizon. The horizon in the Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve Calculator is a physical limitation to your view that formerly blocked boats and buildings. It's the edge. It's your Earth curve edge that the boats fall over. That's right, Globe Believers. You're the ones with an edge, and you're the ones with boats falling over it, to the point where you literally mathematically qualify how much of a boat has fallen over your crazy edge. And we've debunked the horizon as being that edge and physical, to the point where the Globe respondents tell us we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. It only exists in the maths.
Isn't that funny how they gave us an edge, though, and they made a big joke about it?
We can, Mr. Scratchy Mike, I can hear whatever it is you're scraping your mic along while you're talking. They gave us an edge because they take the weakest elements of their own argument for a globe. That would be that we have a physical geometric hill in the way known as the horizon, also called Earth curve, until 2020, and they project those weak-ass arguments onto us at the feast of nonsense that we all arrive at. So you get through the door, wow, we've been lied to, the Earth's not a sphere. What's this table labelled Flat Earth? It says have a seat and eat as much as you like. What's this? Let's gobble away on all this crap that's lying around at the feast of nonsense. One of the things is going to be this model like a pizza pie flying up through a sky vacuum with an edge and a boat falling off it. You and your now belief is this. You understand? Gobble it down. Make sure you vomit it up when the next Globe Believer comes and asks you about your new faith.
I must admit, I was at that table in the beginning. Nicholson, Morley, all
We
of that
all were.
stuff. Ether.
Nate, it's like let he who cast the first stone and all that. Raise your hand if you didn't gobble down at least 20 courses at the Feast of Nonsense when you came to Flat Earth. Hands up.
I'm putting my hand up right now.
You were the one putting out the nonsense. You were the one serving it.
Yeah. Rectangular looper.
What? I brought forth the holographic non-local sun.
Point made. Point proven. First breath. Yep, that's right. You were the one serving up some of that nonsense. What you were saying, Arwin, was even worse. You were like, check it out. Look at all this catering being done at the Feast of Nonsense. I want that gig.
Yeah, but not that gig, though.
You not only wanted that gig, you wanted paying millions for the quality of your gourmet dishes at the Feast of Nonsense. Let's not beat bandy words with me. I know what happened. I was there.
Yeah, so was I. And I remember exactly what happened. And I didn't buy all these presuppositions of objects.
No, I didn't say you bought them. I didn't say you scoffed them. I said you tried to serve more. You saw how much nonsense there was to consume. You recognised it as nonsense. Fair play, the question was hands up who didn't gobble it. But I was smart enough to realise I can peddle this nonsense just like they can. The mistake you made was you started demanding that the caterers paid you.
I didn't gobble that shit down. I simply sought an alternative, and I presented it even before I had my own channel.
Holy crap, over 200 people watching. That hasn't been the case for about when was the last over 200 people watching?
It's because I shared the show on my show.
It's the mafia genre.
There hasn't been 200 people watching for more than 2 years. So when did COVID happen? Was it late 2019?
Correct.
Dude,
That was when
yeah.
when the viewers last hit over 200 before COVID. Woohoo! Over 200 people watching. Woohoo! Please share the show.
It's the power of
More
money.
hours.
Massive. Thanks, guys.
I'd like to have a confirmation that I didn't gobble down the bullshit when it was first presented, Nathan.
No, I will agree. There's a good reason why you're on the panel, Arwin. You're not stupid. We all know how smart you are. You don't need me to kiss your ass or blow smoke up your ass. We know. I already conceded, just in a subtle way, that I didn't have to labour, but you obviously want that, so I'll give it you. Yeah, okay. Arwin, and I recognise this pretty much immediately, not only recognised the nonsense, saw an opportunity in that nonsense. So it was a bad example asking you to raise your hands. You raised it first, and I'll grant you, you're right, you didn't gobble down all the nonsense. There was a certain amount of nonsense, but I did qualify like who didn't gobble down 10 dishes.
Well,
you're not going to deny that there was a certain amount.
I had a whole bunch of nonsense inside of my head that I was trying to figure out. Remember the things that I was terrified about at first? I was dealing with that.
I get it. You were pioneering yourself in nonsense that hadn't even happened yet. So before this current vibe, and it's one of the reasons I get pissed about it, right? It's because you and I, Arwin, we've been there, done that. Go back and check out Arwin and I discussing basically mud flood and giants. And what was the other subject that was rolled in there? I forget. I think it was...
Trees.
No trees.
No way.
Me and Arwin were discussing that before it even happened. Because we were interested in it as a new subject. And this is in 2016?
This is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Right? I've been to the buffet, right? But you have to go to the buffet and taste it. And it's not until you get further in and respect to your ear that you develop a palate for what real science is and how important that is. And that takes time. So you will chow down on some crap early on as you get into this. Hopefully your palate refines.
I don't know. As soon as they started throwing in, like, it's this, of course, right? That type of sentence is just immediate allergic response. So it's like, I might take a bite, but as soon as my teeth hit it, it's like, no, thanks.
Then you have
the most I did was take a whiff. I didn't bite any of that shit. There's a lot of that shit I didn't bite at all.
I just got to make a quick note. Sorry, there's 250 people watching.
Sorry, dude.
No, I'm just overjoyed that there's so many people watching. I don't know what's happened. Either somebody far more popularised tweeted out that the show's on, because I've suggested, as I do every single show, that you share it. But just big numbers. That's good numbers for me. That's, right up against the absolute maximum I've ever reached. I mean, I got up to about 300 pre-COVID at some stage, or maybe even slightly beyond. But there or thereabouts. I'll have to check on my buttons, because I used to have buttons on my Stream Deck that would thank the number of people, and I think it got up to... I'll actually do that now. I'll check it, because I can tell you exactly where the limit... Because I kept on adding on, like, wow, 300 people watching, etc. More chat. Here we go. And now it must have gone past 350 then, because I've got a wow, 400 people watching, which tends to be indicative of, okay, I've got to 350, I better add the next number up. So I think I must have got to 350 as the absolute maximum. Anyway, this is boring for anybody watching going, I came here to not be praised for adding your numbers.
Yeah, it's all because I shared your show at the end of my show on the platform that shall not be named. Because I had a really good show. Very
you can mention any
argument, and there was a whole bunch of people in there too. So
okay, you can mention any platform you like. What you can't do is direct people to go to it when they're on YouTube. YouTube want to retain their audience. They want you to stay on their website. So if you say, I'm not saying this, but if you say go to DLive now, You're suggesting that they leave this platform, which is obviously against their terms of service. Anyway, boring as that may be, let's do a bit more housekeeping. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
You're going to need that for that.
Reference frames are ruined. Conservation of stationary momentum.
Conservation of stationary momentum?
Yeah, he's still serving that food at that table, obviously.
That's why he's here. We love Arwin.
I'm actually making
really
lunch
good
right now.
Sorry, Owen. I was going to say, what you've done there is you've took their nasty food and repackaged it for them.
There is no evidence of axial rotation. If we were on a rotating body, then the airplanes that fly in a direct straight line over our heads would appear to take a curved path. They don't. That is the end of that.
Yeah, they do. I see a plane come from the horizon, and then I have to literally crane my neck as it goes over the top of me and look up to see it, and then it goes down towards the other horizon. You're telling me that's not a curve?
No, you would see a curved path in the sky. That's perspective. The path would be curved in the sky. It wouldn't go straight from the horizon up over your head and appear to go up from the horizon up over your head and then appear to go back down to zero.
I'll let you off. I'll let you off the hook because you did drop the word appear in. That's what I was waiting for. Yeah, appears. Yes, that's right. Appears. It would appear to take a curved path if there was a Coriolis deflection to be observed from the ground as you turn beneath the plane. It wouldn't be an actual curve. It would just look like it because you'd turn beneath it on a turning Earth. Obviously, if that was the case, for us to be turning underneath a plane, it means Earth's turning under planes. And runways are turning under planes as they come into land. Yeah, that's a big problem that they don't have to deal with.
Nathan, you just don't understand Coriolis.
You tell
Nathan.
navigators not to consider the Earth flat and stationary.
But I said in my original, when I said originally that the plane is taking a straight path, and did I not say it appears to take a curve, or did I just say, did I not use the word appears when I first
No,
said
you
it?
did. You did. You're good.
All right.
Take it easy, killer.
It's apparent. The deflection in Coriolis is apparent. That would be to say it appears but isn't actual. You turn underneath something, look at it, and it looks like it curves. Well, that's apparent as opposed to actual deflection. This is why Wolfie 6020 was held over a barrel recently, because he's claiming that he has to correct for Coriolis drift. Well, Coriolis drift is a not actual deflection observed as you turn beneath something. So with the roundabout, it's exampled by a ball thrown over the top of a roundabout. As you spin beneath the ball, you observe it seem to curve. But do you suddenly say, oh no, I better tell the ball to correct for it? It's like the ball isn't doing anything. It's just being tossed in a straight path over the top of your head as you turn beneath it. So while it might seem like it curves, it doesn't. Likewise, while it might seem like a plane takes a curved path as you look at it through the air, it doesn't. It's not actual deflection. Certainly not something that you'd need to radio into ground control because you're on a roundabout. I'm looking at an aeroplane. It looks like it's curving because I'm a bloody kid's roundabout. Can you tell the pilot to correct for it? Well, Wolfie thinks he needs to because he doesn't understand Coriolis deflection.
Nathan, the consensus mind control is the problem. They say we have curvature, but none of us have ever seen it, but we have to believe it's there. And then they say that the sun is really far away and the sunlight comes in parallel. But every time we go out and you see it breaking through the clouds, it's divergent. So the mind control of their model says, no, there's curve, sunlight is parallel, but we don't see it. We see the opposite. And now we got axial rotation. Well, none of us experientially can prove the Earth is moving. In fact, we don't feel any movement. And as Brian said, it's just very simple. And just like the show always says, if the Earth is moving, then the flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA would be an hour and a half, but it takes 4.5. So the Earth is now moving toward Charlotte. It's all anchors in the mind of consensus pseudoscience that everyone has bought. And then when someone says, I don't think We live on the ball. Oh, you going against science. But it's really they're the ones who've been poisoned by consensus pseudoscience.
Shout out to Eric McNearney. Hope I'm saying your name right. Hi, Nathan, and all. It's been a long time. Glad to see you're all going strong. Thank you very much. As usual, few Globers willing to debate, I see. Smiley face. Indeedy. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Very, very educational shows when it's not bombarded with Globe believers. Let's have a quick glance at the Discord server and see if I've missed anybody that might need unmuting. I don't think so. No, thank you very much indeed for the support. Really appreciate it. Any evidence of the R value? That'd be Earth radius.
It requires a flat plane to calculate.
Indeedy.
Black Swan.
Only exists in the maths.
Say again, 10th, then George.
I said, what R value?
That was just answered by, I believe, chocolate. You're going to need a flat plane for that. Go ahead, George.
It only exists in the maths. Thanks, Rampus.
That's not strictly true anymore either. I know we've said that a long.
How long are you doing the housekeeping questions, Nathan?
I don't know, Neil. That violates the celestial sphere model, Jorge. Go on, Matt.
So I'm looking at the different forms of evidence, and like circumstantial evidence is one of them. And I was wondering, as it regards to the housekeeping question on the evidence of the distance to the sun, and even though circumstantial evidence is a weak form of evidence, it's still evidence nonetheless when we're talking about the diverging rays.
What about them?
What?
Wouldn't it be a circumstantial evidence as to the distance? Since the housekeeping question is there any evidence?
Just you tell us how, and then we'll tell you if it is or isn't.
Well, the a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm just wondering if that is, even though it would be like circumstantial evidence from my circumstances, when I see these diverging rays, I can calculate a distance.
Are you talking?
I'd like Brian to answer. I know Brian's got the right answer to this already in terms of calculating heights based on this calculation. Go ahead, Brian. And before you do, shout out to Flatten the Curve, who says, "Hey, Wolfie, stop hiding behind your globe and come debate me." Thank you very much for the super chat, Flatten the Curve. Really appreciate the support. Go ahead, Brian.
Of the height of the sun? We're using the rays, the divergence of the rays. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, he is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't triangulate. Like, the problem with that is that the sun is going to be in different positions according to you at different times. I don't know if you can get it. Like, if you do it, how do you prove it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, not like doing it with a mountain where you can then prove it.
Well, you can't.
Probably not explain this.
You have to track it down.
Can you?
Yeah,
Hold on, Adam's having a bash. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, so you can't get a measurement per se, whether that be a ray or whatever, because you can't measure to a ray, can you? So all you can do is look at. I think this is what you say in circumstances. Look at it objectively, and say to yourself, are those rays parallel, and therefore possibly any distance could be applicable, or are they diverging, as I look at them, therefore converging to a point source, and looking at that rate of convergence, could that be 93 million miles away, or is it more likely to be a closer thing? You could apply logic to that situation to make a logical conclusion, but that would be old. There's no...
Well, it would be more like a logical exclusion, because it doesn't actually prove a location in the end.
Can I ask a question to the panel then?
Yeah.
So if the sunlight is coming in parallel, as they say, how would you get the GP of the sun? I mean, the GP would be miles and miles across, Anywhere inside of
That's
that
why-
GP, you'll have the sun above your head. So
that's why I call it
this
the
already
super
proves that the
GP.
sun needs to be local and the rays needs to be divergent.
Spot on.
You
Do you
couldn't,
want to
George.
hold on just before you back him up, Chocolate? Do you want to just repeat that one more time, Jorge? Absolutely spot on.
The sun rays cannot be parallel. 'Cause that would give you a GP to the sun to be miles and miles across. The sun rays need to be divergent, and the sun needs to be local. That's why
Perfect.
the elevation angle, I would say, is a good way to do it.
Right, now Chocolate, Super GP, go ahead.
Yeah, so by that, in that circumstance, right, the sun, basically half the Earth is covered by the sun, right, in their model. So that would be the GP of the sun, would be half the Earth. That's why I call it a super GP, because what you're saying is absolutely right. It can't be parallel, because then the entire GP is the entire half of the Earth that's covered by the sun. That's insanity.
That checks out.
And furthermore, you can't get an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline if you're asserting that the light comes in to the Earth parallel with your super GP massive. Well, how are you going to get a baseline?
Yep.
Yeah, the whole thing falls apart because they actually have positions for both sides. They're saying the sun rays come in parallel, and when they hit a curved surface, that's how we get our shadows and angles. In reality, the instrument used is a sextant or theodolite or any one of these things, and you can't get an angle from a curved surface. So they die right there on that one. So they take it to the equatorial plane and say, well, we're really getting the angle from a cutout of the center of the Earth, so it's flat where we're actually measuring it. But you're not actually measuring it from the center. That's a mathematical gameplay that they do. The other part is they say the sun is really far away, okay, but then but it can't do divergent rays, as we see, if it's really far away. So they're stuck.
Okay, so just confirm for me in the chat, I'm not seeing 100 or 1.4 thousand likes.
Yeah.
That there's got to be an issue. It seems unusual. Nobody's saying in the chat, oh yeah, I came from this link on Twitter, or I came because this person shared it on Facebook. And the chat typically looks about this speed. So, I don't know, there's probably an issue with YouTube. 290 viewers, considering the speed of the chat, seems higher than it should be. And Anthony saying that there's a load of likes, that sounds like a YouTube issue, doesn't it? I'm probably celebrating 290 viewers that aren't real or are an issue.
Or the viewing limiter has been turned off by accident through the latest update.
Oh, right. What you're saying is I typically get this number of viewers, and to make it seem less popular, you're such a conspiratard.
Yeah, I was thinking you've got like
That's a good conspiracy, though. I like that.
5,000 viewers, 1.6 thousand likes, but YouTube's running your figures down, so it only telling you there's only 291, but there's thousands watching because you got 1.7 thousand likes.
I've heard it all. I've heard that before. I just don't think it's true. The reason I don't think it's true, I think if you were to suggest, rather than what you're getting is being concealed, I don't buy that. If you were to say, okay, they're limiting the amount of people that will come to watch, I'd be more likely to buy it if you had some evidence to back it. But ultimately, the statistics that I use to keep track of where I'm at in my work or on YouTube, boring as this may be, is something that they sell to businesses. And if you're paying for the advertising that I'm watching the statistics for on my own channel, then you're going to have pretty shit accountants that are going to make damn sure YouTube aren't ripping you off with the stats. So I actually do trust my stats. So I don't think a lot of what people say about YouTube and their just the crap people come out with, like we've just done, or you, not me, have just done.
It'll get corrected tomorrow.
I think you underestimate how many people, even in different languages, that listen to this, because like my girlfriends because she goes into different chats And she tells me that a lot of people watch the show based on what she sees them talking about in those chats. And they're, Spanish speaking chats. I mean, she was like, wow, a lot of people watch this.
I agree, but it's just not like necessarily live viewers, because when I see a number like that, 296 viewers, I expect my chat to go at a lick, and I also expect somebody in the chat to say, I came where I wouldn't have normally because of X. Nobody has said that in the chat. So it just looks like, and you could tell by my surprise, I'm surprised at that number. Well, I know there's a lot of people that watch the show. The channel, Nathan Oakley 1980, gets 100,000 views a month. Sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less, but on average, at the moment, that's how many views it gets, which means there's a lot of people watching these shows, because that's all I put out. This is what we do here, right, on this channel. You might get occasional videos about a new monitor, but they're not the bulk of the views. You might get 300 or 400 views for a video like that. But the rest of them is all this content. So yeah, a lot of people do watch the show, but not necessarily live, all at once, all in the chat, chatting away. And like I say, if I see 300, there's now 300 plus people watching, I'd expect the chat to be going quicker. So I think it's an anomaly, or yeah, go on.
There's been an accusation. Tony's addressed it. He's figured it out, I think. 1 o'clock saying which one of you is buying Nathan views and likes, but yeah, Sleeping Warrior. He's blaming Ranty. So
blaming Ranty. Oh God! Don't let this open the floodgates to conspiracy. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
That would be tough for the definition of gas pressure. That'd be a tough cookie to solve.
Considering you need a container to establish a vacuum, it's self-evident.
Right.
Right.
You're going to need at least 3 containers, I would say.
You're going to need a container for that.
If you look at how a vacuum is defined, it's a lack of gas pressure. So the only way to show a lack of gas pressure would be to remove it within a container, or to have a situation where there is a massive differential within a container. There is no other way to show a vacuum or create a vacuum. It requires a container, just like temperature and gas pressure.
Lamal Forever from the chat says they want to remain anonymous. Well, that's a possibility. I can see that in the stats, Lamal. In other words, if they've come via a service that doesn't necessarily invite people to chat, like smart TV services, I can see that. In other words, there's a limitation to people to increase the chat rate, but my typical chat rate is about 14 chats per minute, I think, and that's what it's at now. So that's a typical chat rate. But if I go in and see, okay, yes, somebody's managed to get it advertised, or it's managed to hit a Netflix style, smart TV presentation for YouTube, then that might be the case, but I can't tell now. I'll have to look at the stats after the fact. But it does seem strange that it's now at 18. I'd expect it to be 10%. So if I've got 300 people watching, I'd expect the chat rate to be 30 as opposed to 18. Now, 18 indicates it should be at 180 people watching, which is higher than usual anyway. So it might be something like that. There might be somebody who's shared it on a platform that doesn't necessarily increase the chat frequency.
Is this empirical evidence or mathematical that you're...
Just intriguing. I mean, we do this show daily, so when weird things happen on the show, it is I'm more than content to talk about them, because number one, it generates... I know my audience and I know my panel, and it generates an interesting discussion with a lot of conspiracy around it, which is fine. But I can interweave a few housekeeping questions. I can ask if there's any scientific evidence of gravity while you lot are talking about, what might be the cause of the high viewing figures today.
I told you what it is. I shared you with the mob genre.
So we've got the mafias watching and in university friends as the reason.
Correct. It's a mob. You get it? Mob?
Perfect tumbleweeds. Thank you, panel. any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet. They could, but they don't. Because they
No, but
like to
there's a-
stick to their fictional medium, and that doesn't work.
What do you mean they could? You said this yesterday. How?
Well, by stepping outside of their field and just making a valid hypothesis.
Yeah, but the question is concerning their field, not outside of their field.
Good point. Well, they could start from scratch with a more sensible approach of astronomy and then make a viable hypothesis somehow.
And what would that be?
I don't know.
Well, how could they even have one?
They can't.
Well, how do you know? Maybe they'll figure out a way to vary and manipulate the celestial light.
Like I said, impossible.
What if they do?
You mean the one that hangs over their baby crib? That one, the model of it?
No.
Oh,
I
so
mean
they're
the
gonna-
actual lights there.
Yeah. So how are they going to manipulate the sun?
I don't know. Not saying that they're going to manipulate the sun just like that without some devastating consequence, but they might be able to manipulate stars, right? There's already these weird little things out
Oh,
there
come
about
on.
shooting lasers at the sky and then somehow creating stars and all these things. So who knows?
I mean, what Arwen is saying checks out because apparently they sent a dune buggy to the moon. Right?
No.
So-
Pause.
No, don't strawman me. I'm not talking heliocentrism. I'm talking actual stars.
What about
Yeah.
As
What about
what they really
eclipses?
are.
Not as shy, Arvin.
what about the eclipses? Isn't that the claim? Eclipses as proof of through hypothesis, whatever they call it. Not that it's true, but they claim eclipses what they are.
Okay,
Well,
so
shadows,
okay, let's,
what
What
let's
did they
address
vary
that.
and manipulate?
Yeah, Owen's got that ready. Go ahead, you beat me to it.
What are they vary and manipulating about the eclipse in order to
Not the
establish a
eclipse.
cause and
No,
effect?
stop, Arwen. Stop.
Just
Stop.
that's a step
Stop. The eclipse is the phenomena being observed. They're not going to vary and manipulate it. They're going to try and attempt to vary something to cause it. So what would be the independent variable? If they're claiming the eclipse is the phenomena, that would be dependent variable. What's their claimed cause, and what did they vary to cause it? Now, bearing in mind that they claim the turn of the Earth and the orbital motion is the cause, you'll have a job varying and manipulating that. Begging the question fallacy.
Or they'd have to install rockets on the moon to push it in front of the sun or away from the sun, and then they can vary and manipulate it. Requires a little
Push-
work, though.
Push what?
You can't vary and manipulate their assumptions within the heliocentric model of this phenomena. Their claimed cause, and they very much do have a cause and effect relationship asserted in this regard, is not validated and debunked because it violates the celestial sphere model and requires a flat plane to acquire elevation angle measurements to Polaris for dual radii to give you a radius value to insert into Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. That would be orbital mechanics. Well, to get there, you need a flat plane. So this whole thing is nonsense.
Okay, that might be a little bit of an obstruction, for sure.
A little bit. I couldn't have been more concise. It's a massive roadblock.
No, I'm being sarcastic here.
Oh, my bad.
You are going to need R for that as well.
And where are you going to get
Nathan,
R? Where are you going to get R? Any evidence of the R value? That's Earth radius.
You can only
Negative.
calculate it based on a flat plane.
Well, that means you're on a flat plane.
There's a note by Level. Apparently, there's people in Discord who want to speak, need to be unmuted.
Oh, my bad.
I really like the Alberuni story now.
Okay, everyone's off mute in Discord if you wanted to add something. Who was it that wanted to add something? This is not that tumbleweed moment that was humorous with Neil. maybe
What do you
I'll
mean?
just take over then. I'll just take it. So I'd like to hear the Alberuni story again, how we used a flat plane to measure the height of a mountain, to go onto the mountain, and then presuppose that the horizon is geometric in order to establish the radius value.
you just told it. That was a really good, concise rendition of Alberuni measuring the height of a mountain off a flat plane by using the law of sines and moving back away from it and comparing the difference to give him the height, then going up the height measured off a flat plane and assuming the height measured off a flat plane is now invalid because the flat surface he used to get the angle is now curving according to him, and he's measuring tangents to it rather than heights from it.
And of course,
I just love that
reapplying the
story now.
horizon as the leading edge of the ball.
I've done just one more time, Adam. Everyone else, 1 sec.
And of course, when he got to the top, he's met by a militarized black swan because he's about to reify the horizon now as the leading edge, a geometric consideration of a ball.
It was the same militarized black swan that met Rufy recently.
It was.
The same exact one. Amazing. Man, that black swan's been alive for a long time.
Well, it needs to meet Virus. It hasn't met Virus yet because Virus said he did all of this.
No, that's amnesia.
Okay. There's a mob watching now.
Yeah, if anybody can indicate why, I mean, the 2,000 plus likes that I'm being told from the chat I've currently got on this particular stream tends to indicate there's an issue. But if there's still a slim chance that those 300 plus people watching right now are genuine, there is 20 plus chat rate. That's pretty high. I mean, the chat is now looking along.
I would give your chance a lot higher possibilities than rockets on the moon pushing it somewhere, that Arvin said.
Well, I think it was earlier on, Sleeping Warrior said words to the effect of, if you just took the numbers at face value, would that not be considered naive? Well, initially I did take the numbers at face value, because I do take YouTube numbers at face value. I trust the stats. However, that doesn't mean that it's infallible. It doesn't mean that there isn't occasionally glitches and errors, which I have personally seen on many occasions. And I think this is one of them. But by the same token, up until the point that people started pointing out the exorbitant amount of likes that the video has, which has happened before and just gets corrected after the fact, I wouldn't have questioned the numbers. I'd just say, woohoo, somebody shared my video, great. Thank you very much for sharing, like I normally do. But in this instance, I'm pretty sure there's just an issue. And I'm not going to praise numbers that I think are fake. In fact, it kind of annoys me. I want real stats.
You're welcome for sharing.
I don't think it is.
Hang on. Level says the people whining about being muted won't talk now.
Yeah, what happened? I thought they was complaining about that. They had a chance to speak and nobody spoke up. What's going on?
It might be that they weren't able to get into the chat. So for future reference, if you are watching this live, there's a live stream queue. So if there's 13, there's now 14 people in there. So presumably Paul has just joined because he's a mod and can. But if the chat stream is higher than it needs to be and you can't just join as a member of the public, we will still move you in. You just join the live stream queue and that will get you in when I notice, which I may not, but hopefully I will, and then we'll chat to you. But yeah, often there's a mod in there that'll do that for me if I'm not paying attention. But yeah, so did we cover all the housekeeping? It'd be nice, assuming this has been a high viewership show, to actually get through them all. Did we miss any? Molten iron core. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
What do you mean? They use it when they do celestial navigation. They cut the Earth in half and they take their measurements, so they should know what's in the center.
No, that's them using the celestial sphere model. So when they claim that they've got an angle from a curve, which they haven't, they take that angle that they haven't got from the curved surface to begin with, it was measured off a plane, and move it to the centre, because the sphere Earth in this instance is actually a protractor, and the bifurcated flat plane that runs through that 360-degree circle, aka protractor, is the flat plane we're actually standing on. Now, there was no need for that transposition from a surface that's curved that won't give you an angle to a flat plane with a celestial sphere above it. That would be a perspective view represented in orthographic view of what you will see of the sky. There's no need to go through any of that process. You just measure the angle.
Oh, dear.
Was that the last key last housekeeping question? Are we going to round out housekeeping at the same time as the show? I'm sure I've missed one. Gas pressure without a container, we definitely did, didn't we?
Where we did that.
I think you got them all, Nathan.
Yeah, we did that.
We did definitely cover them all. Perfect. Well, great show. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. But unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the super chat. I think someone actually did just hit the super chat just as we were ending. Sebastian Tello. Thank you very much for the super chat. It says, good morning, guys. I enjoy listening while I'm drinking my coffee. Great day to everyone. Well, thank you very much indeed for the super chat right at the end, just while I was rounding out, Sebastian Tello. Really do appreciate the support. Also, after the live show has ended, there's now a thanks button, which is great. I've turned that on in the last couple of days. So if you did want to support the show after the live show has ended and there isn't a super chat button, then you can hit the thanks button. Really appreciate anybody who does in advance of doing so. So thank you for hitting the thanks button if you have done so on this video. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching it on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.